This is the eulogy for Nita Hardiman née Smiley that will be read by the celebrant Lisa Hoyle at Nita's funeral on the 11th of November 2020. I met Nita when she was the schoolgirl sister of my good friend Jan, and our lives and that of our families have been intertwined for almost 50 years. The Smiley sisters have played a huge part in my life, and I loved Nita and was close to her. It is my honour to make this eulogy at her funeral. On the day of her death, I was running an English conversation class with a group of teenagers here in Croatia, where I now live, and I was asked the question, "Who is your hero?" I thought about this and then replied, "My friend Nita, who died today." I then went on to explain that Nita wasn't anybody famous or any kind of celebrity, but she was a hero to me because she lived her life truthfully, fighting for what she believed in, and by being genuinely good and kind to others. But Nita wasn't good in a passive, accepting kind of way. Nita was tenacious. If she thought she had to do something, then she did it, and then she was unstoppable. You did not argue with Nita. It wasn't that she was always right, it was just that you could never win. Nita didn't really do left or right. Nita did it Nita's way, straightforward and with no compromise. In particular, Nita was a lioness for her man, her husband, her lovely Neil. She supported Neil, she protected Neil, and she championed Neil. Nita showed her deep and profound love for Neil every day and in every way possible. During those years, she went to work, they had holidays together, she arranged, supported and cared for Neil in everything. And when the time came for Neil to need personal care, my son Rob became one of his first carers. Nita loved it when she drove Neil and Rob to Goodison and the two Blues watched Everton together. When Nita met Neil, there was no indication of the horrendous disease that was to come on gradually, and which over the next 25 years would rob Neil of his abilities to walk and talk, and would eventually mean he required constant care. Nita never complained about her life, she just got on with it, especially when supporting her man, her Neil. Her love for Neil was exceptional, selfless and noble. A fighter and tenacious in many ways, Nita accepted what life gave her and made the most of it, whatever that was. Nita had many friends, and particularly dear to her heart were the Forever 16 group, Gail, Lee, Leslie, Pat and Nita. I never participated in any of their lunches or evenings out, but I'd be entertained with the stories of hilarity, laughing until they cried, and of course Nita's teeth, which would then make them laugh the more. A wonderful group of women, all of whom laughed when others might have cried, all of whom will miss dearly their lifelong friend Nita. Nita's many years of working at Littlewoods also left her a legacy of good friends and fond memories. She was described by many who knew her from those days as a lovely lady with a good heart and a lovely smile, kind and fun to work with. It was early in the Littlewood days that Nita met her dear friend Elsie, and also got to know Dennis and the family well, including their granddaughter. Nita loved to go to the theatre with Elsie, sneaking in their own drinks and sometimes even their own butties. Nita had a uniquely straightforward way of telling a story which made everyone laugh, except the person who had in some ways crossed her. Nita also loved the bingo, and over the years it was remarkable that whenever they were short of a few bob, they would have a decent win on the bingo, or the Irish lottery. It was just like someone new. Family was very important to Nita, growing up with her sisters, her indomitable mother Phil and grandmother Hetty, known to my little Robbie as Nanny Charlie Cat. Nita was particularly close to her mother Phil, and she lived at home until she moved in with Neil. Although, because of Neil's condition, Nita chose not to have children, probably her only one real regret. Nita loved children and was generous with her time and love. She was particularly close to Zoe's girls and was always happy to be asked to babysit. Nita had a lot of time for Zoe and her girls, and she admired Zoe as a mother. Nita was very fond of Jan's children, Sam and Jess, and was very excited to hear of the birth of little Jasmine in June of this year, when she finally completed knitting one of her legendary baby blankets, spurred on by her nephew Sam becoming a father. She loved to give presents, and on her very last shopping trip with Pat the week she died, they bought the full Rapunzel costume, including the tiara and Rapunzel wig with braid, for my granddaughter Alba's 6th birthday next week. I have a very special photo of Auntie Nita, Auntie Pat and Alba at my niece's Sophie's wedding this time last year. Nita was Auntie Nita to my family, but true to form, Nita loved to remind all my 6-foot sons that she used to change their nappies when they were babies, especially if they had a girlfriend or wife with them. Nita will be sorely missed by my family, and we have all been grieving since her sudden death, and along with many others will continue to cherish Nita's memory with love and affection for years to come. As my daughter-in-law Rachel wrote, Nita, it was an honour to have 9 years with you, to hear your beautiful voice sing so full of the joy and pain of life, and to witness your selfless nature. Thank you for adopting me into the family and being my auntie this past decade, especially when my own family is so far away. But I cannot talk about Nita without talking about Pat. Nita and Pat, Pat and Nita. The two names went together as the two sisters went together. From my early memories of the two of them babysitting my Robbie to the two of them singing karaoke in the Earl Marshall, getting in a taxi for some shopping trip, pub lunch, St John's Market, going off together for holidays in Croatia or Whitby, it was always Nita and Pat, Pat and Nita. For many years it's been difficult to separate the two names. After Pat came back from London, and particularly after Pat's stroke and the death of Neil, the two sisters have been together almost constantly. Living as neighbours, they gave each other mutual support and companionship, and as Pat herself said, I not only lost my sister, but my best friend. She was truly a wonderful woman with a heart of gold. I know we squabbled over stupid things, but nothing and no one could come between us. I'm broken-hearted and will miss her so much. It's hard to imagine Pat on her own, but I know that even in these crazy times of lockdowns and isolation, the many friends of Nita and Pat are here now for Pat. I'd particularly like to mention Adele and Kevin, whose support has been there in true Smiley fashion just when it was needed, getting on with it, providing care and assistance because they loved Nita and Pat. Thank you. There will be a big gap in the Earl Marshall when it reopens, as Nita, the loving, caring person with the kindest of hearts, won't be sitting there, doing a puzzle, answering quiz questions on the TV, or singing Back to Black in the karaoke. However, the woman who didn't have a bad word to say about anybody and just wanted to help people will be fondly recalled by many. But Pat will be there, and the lads in our corner who've helped out whenever needed over the years will remember Nita as they joke and chat with Pat. And to conclude, I think it's very appropriate that Nita's funeral is on Remembrance Day, as she too died a hero who lived with dignity and honour, a hero who fought many battles for those she loved. Nita, you were a fighter for what you knew was right. You were loved and respected, and you will be sorely missed. But we now know you are with your beloved Neil, your mum Phil, your big sister Jan, and of course, Nanny Charlie Cat.